Welcome to Dexerto's The Jungle Preview Show presented by DJ Esports. Sign up on djesports.io to immediately participate in the World Prediction Series. Earn your deposit bonus for Worlds Stage 2 using promo code DJEX50 for a 50% deposit bonus up to 200 USDT. You can also join the DJ Esports Discord for additional bonuses and incentives. This is The Jungle. I'm your host, dGon. Joining me are Dom and Monty. And we've got a special guest. It's the First Blood King. It's Jankos joining us.
That's
Jankos,
a very,
how are you,
very
man?
old name, but thank you very much. And I'm doing well. I'm doing very well.
Worlds has kicked off. EU has made it out. NA has made it out. There are some failures throughout. We're going to dive into all of it. Let's start off.
And Jankos isn't there. You know, he's not there for the first time since 2017.
No, actually,
You had a good run.
Oh, yeah, it was since 2017. But every time I went to Worlds, I went at least to semifinals. So missing it, sometimes I miss it. But when I make it, I always do well. That's what I tell myself.
That's actually a very good point. That's a really good. That's a really fucking good track record to always make it to at least semifinals. That is very impressive. You probably are tops of the results out of all European players, considering you made it to semis with H2K as well.
Yes,
I think you actually have made it further consistently than any other Western player, and I had never considered that before. That is,
I'm not sure about Perkz though, because Perkz is currently in quarters, and I know he didn't make it once out of groups in like the first year, right? But since
2017 as well.
Oh, in 2017 as well? Okay, maybe.
Yeah, in 2017 he didn't make it out of groups because he was in the group with Royal and Samsung and
but then in 2018 he was same team, 2019 he was same team, 2020 he was same team, and now he's already in quarters. So if he does make semis, which is, highly likely against Gen.G, then
holy shit!
Holy
Okay,
we're already here with the hot takes.
Jesus, no, I hate Gen.G too, bro. Can we just flame Gen.G? Like, can we just not do any of the segments and flame Gen.G for an hour straight? I'm so down. Like, you have no idea.
Is that where we should start? Just Cloud9 basically just getting a cupcake of a quarterfinal I fucking so lucky to be against Gen.G.
I think that, it is probably the best they could hope for, right? They couldn't play DAMWON, so I think DAMWON clearly after group stage, I would say, played the strongest team from the ones you could face. Then they could get SKT T1, which I think is just, a better Gen.G, and
RNG.
RNG, right?
And RNG, right? So that's also quite hard. I think, compared to Gen.G. So from all the first seeds, I think they got the most likely, and I think Gen.G as a team at Worlds is probably like the slowest phase playing team we have left. I even think Hanwha Live is slightly faster, but I also think that Hanwha Live is trolling a lot. But yeah, I think, very lucky with the draft, definitely.
I'm annoyed that my fact of the week gets blown in the first 2 minutes of the show here.
Did I ruin it again?
Yes. I'll figure one out off the top. Let's recap the groups themselves and go through a week 2 that was to remember for at least the beginning of it. Cloud9, 0-3, sitting at the bottom of Group A. No one thought they would get through. Rogue beat them. It was not good. It was a not good time, and all NA fans were pretty miserable. Then the run happens. FPX just implodes, probably one of the largest implosions in World's history. I kind of want to start there with FPX because coming into it, we've talked one of the world's favorites. You got so much experience, Nuguri, Doinb. This was a team that was built for the long run, and they could not find form in week 2.
No. They were secretly built by DAMWON to install Nuguri as a sleeper agent within FPX last year to sabotage them internally so that we could have this result.
I don't think they needed to be sabotaged if you looked at how they played last year, to be honest. Honestly, without Nuguri, they probably wouldn't even been here in the first place. So
I also don't think that the same Tian from... the way I remember Tian from 2019 Lee Sin was not the same Tian I saw, especially throughout the whole second part of group stage. I think his Jarvan especially was really underwhelming.
Oh yeah, he played like shit the entire time. It was really disgusting. Tien always had that quality. This isn't even the first FPX implosion we saw. It's just that you would expect that even with an implosion, they would not end up playing this poorly. And I'm really surprised they didn't do anything with their lineup. So earlier this split, for people that don't know LPL, there was like massive drama within the team. Nuguri literally looked like he was trolling games on stage, and it actually looked like something fucked up was happening within the team. And then he was considered obviously one of the best top laners in the world. He was benched for Zhao Laohu. But yeah, FPX ended up losing to BLG, and everyone was just like, oh, okay, what the fuck is happening with this team? Then they just went on a streak where they were beating everyone. So people expected this to not happen, but it looks like there's actually some strife within the team. I'd be so surprised if FPX actually keeps this 5 together. I think it's almost no chance that we see this team again.
I don't think that's going to happen as well, especially after a failure at Worlds. I mean, I know that, yeah, but basically in Spring Split, after Nuguri joined, they didn't like do so well. And I think that they even had... They were also swapping junglers throughout the year, right? I don't think Tian was like the main jungler for like the whole time. And when you go to Worlds and you are such a hyped team, you go from arguably at least top 2 strongest region around the world, and then you don't get out of groups to European or NA 3rd seed. Yeah, I mean, there is no way they are keeping the same players.
I was just really disappointed because compared to the Worlds run where Tian was fabulous, right? He was, to put some numbers on Dom's points, he had in 7 games a 0 first blood participation rate as a jungler. Like, he had a 60% kill participation rate, which was second lowest of all junglers in groups. Like, he was just not there helping his team at all.
He's arguably the worst player. He's arguably the worst player in all of groups. Like, I think that could actually be an argument that you made. Like, what player on any other team would you say performed worse over the course of their whole group stage than Tian? I don't know.
Odoamne.
Even a DFM player?
Shit, I knew I was saying that!
Odo at least had some good games
there.
Odo had a good Jace game at least in there.
Yeah, he did have like one good game for sure.
Also, Odo got trolled by Draft a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I felt like Tian was given a lot of meta picks and failed on them.
I also think that Rogue, as Threes historically, they were more of a both side heavy playing team, and Inspired is more of a hard farming kind of player as well. So Odo was never like their strong point, you know. He was always left kind of on an island and he was doing his own thing. And against teams like especially DAMWON in the Jax Graves game, of course he died 1-on-1, but in that kind of games, they will put so many numbers into you that you just don't get to play the game anymore. Like, you make one misstep and it's just over.
I think it's so interesting to see the level of ability to punish by the Eastern teams, and then you look at that Cloud9 Rogue match where they can't win the game. They're just punishing themselves, but no one's really winning the game. But it's very clinical from the LPL and the Korean teams. Most of the LPL, not all the LPL.
That group was just so much worse than I thought it would be. Right? I guess that's the takeaway. People's takeaway would be like, oh, it was so exciting, it was so close. And then they focus on Fun plus Phoenix and say, oh yeah, this team massively underperformed, which they did. I mean, we can all agree on that. However, Western fans, if you are in agreement that FPX massively underperformed, then you must also have to agree when FPX was like beating Cloud9 that Cloud9 and Rogue were also massively underperforming and kind of looked like shit. Because with these rosters, with these strengths of players, we would expect them to crush an underperforming FPX. Like, This was supposed to be a very hard group. And it was, but not for the right reasons. Like, DAMWON just slapped people around, and the rest of them just had a fight in the flaming dumpster, and that was it.
I mean, I thought FPX was still going to get out even while underperforming. I mean, they played... I couldn't imagine them playing much worse. Like, somehow they managed to do it. But after week 1, I couldn't imagine them playing much worse in week 2. And they were still winning those games. I mean, even with that atrocious early game that they had versus Cloud9, Cloud9 still couldn't close out. So after seeing that, I didn't think that there was a world where FPX played that bad again and they were going to have another opportunity, but somehow it happened. They actually managed to play even worse in week 2. So I guess from my perspective, I was surprised that even with an underperforming FPX, Cloud9 could beat them. I just thought FPX would advance no matter what.
I also personally felt like a lot of the drafts from Western teams were overall worse throughout the first part of groups, at least. I think it happens often where all the Western teams go to Worlds, right? We are slightly behind the meta, and then we have to adapt to what the Eastern teams are playing, and maybe there's not enough time for the first stage of group stage. And also, we have to keep in mind that when people are playing multiple things in scrims, and I'm sure many, many more champions were played, you don't actually know which is the best draft to go with on stage. You don't know like which champions will prove themselves the strongest on stage. You just kind of flip it, you know. For example, Sylas can be really, really OP in scrims because, you know, you have often skirmishes and you get fed and then you one-shot TF. But then TF comes in on stage and, you know, the games are slightly slower, and every time he has ult and he disappears in side brushes like Faker was doing a lot in SKT1 games, you just don't get to play the game top or bot, you know? So I feel like the drafts improved quite a lot from Western teams, and I think, especially for Cloud9, the TF priority in the second part of group stage was quite important. And I think more teams overall picked up on that. And I also hope that this champion gets removed. I really despise TF. I really, really hope they remove the gold card interaction with rapid fire cannon. And it's so anti-fun champion. You just can't do anything.
With Everfrost on top.
Jankos, were you? Yeah, Everfrost. Jankos, were you playing when in the early like stages of beta? I'm curious if you played with the original TF. Do you know what he did?
Well, I did not play the game, but I do know that first of all, his ult was the same, but it would slow people instead of just revealing them. And then I think he had normal TP on like one of his buttons. Like instead of a passive, he could just TP. Yeah.
So he had a global TP to anywhere on the map on his E. His R was reveal everybody and slow them, and his gold card was an AOE stun.
Yeah, better balanced, I
guess. Well, rapid fire wasn't in the game back then, so it was okay.
It's true. So he didn't have the extra range, I guess, but
yeah. I mean, now he also has like something mentioned before, right? Everfrost, which is basically you stun someone for 2 seconds, then you Everfrost them for 1.5 seconds, and like the guy can't move. Of course, you don't do that much damage, right? But that's in the meta where every jungle is playing a carry jungle, and every top is pretty much playing a carry top. You don't actually need that much more damage from mid lane. Crowd control is just so important to have, and this guy has so much map control, wins early push against most of the matchups, and then can like provide so much help to his teammates. I just think the champ is, I mean, I'm sure it will stay very high priority. I think for the first couple of games, for the first couple of days, we had him like 100% presence throughout the whole tournament, no? Like he was either banned or picked every game.
So let me ask you a question, Jankos. Why didn't we see more TF in the playoffs, in the regional playoffs? Because like I thought coming into like LCK, LEC, LCS, LPL playoffs, we'd see a lot more TF priority because we had seen it towards the end of the season, but there wasn't that much picking it, which surprised me a lot.
It was really high prio in LPL. I know that for sure. Like Cryan would I mean, it wasn't going through a lot. Like not a lot of games were being played on it, but I know it was banned like a lot into Doinb, or it was like taken away. I know Scout played it into Doinb. So I think teams' mentalities were like they thought TF was high prio. It just wasn't like getting through often.
I also think that champion like that is most often prioritized higher in LPL than it would be in LCK. I think in LPL also Galio was played as well a little bit, like more often than LCK.
A ton.
And LCK, I mean, I don't know how the mid laners are. Maybe their mindset is just different. Maybe they prefer to be more carries than, you know, like a sportive kind of role. And I believe in Europe we actually had like a plenty of TF, you know. I mean, I suppose you could say Niski is a TF player and Fnatic was also first picking it, but they were prioritizing TF quite often in the games against us, at least. And then I think MAD Lions played it a fair amount, and the same goes to Rogue. So maybe it was not 100% present in playoffs. I'm sure it wasn't, but I think teams had it in mind. And correct me if I'm wrong, I also believe back then Ryze was slightly stronger, and didn't he get like slightly nerfed ahead of Worlds, which was the pick into TF, you know? Like you pick TF, they pick Ryze, and technically you lose scaling game, and the early game is not even that great for the TF, you know? And the Ryze can actually do stuff. And then they nerf the Ryze, so automatically TF gets better, and TF is also good into LeBlanc. TF is okay-ish into Sylas. Sylas also okay-ish into TF, depends how you play it. Sylas, of course, will outscale. But I think when you ban TF for like the mid lane champion pool around Worlds, it's, you know, mainly, again, Ryze, LeBlanc, and Sylas, right? So I think TF just makes sense as a blind into everything right now. You pick it, and it just can't go wrong if you have a good draft around it.
I had a question about something you said earlier. You said that the Western teams are always catching up to the Eastern teams when you come to Worlds and draft. Why is that? And do you remember a time where you felt, oh, they're copying us because of our draft or what we're bringing to Worlds.
The lane swap Europe was really far ahead on. The one Worlds where the lane swap happened. The Europe meta was by far the best for that.
I think we had like a pretty good lane swaps. I think we understood tempo very well and how to play around towers during the lane swap meta. I think also back in 2019, we had like the Tariq Sona thing. I'm not sure if that appeared in Europe, but I know it was played a lot in Europe, especially in Spring Split playoffs in 2019. And then I guess some Pyke from my solo lanes back in the day. But normally what happens is that when teams from West and East crash in scrims, then you adapt to the team who is winning. Of course, you try to think about the champion from non-result based analysis. So if you feel like the champion is still good and you lost because you are just the worst team, maybe you can still pull it out on stage and be good with it. But normally when you play against the Eastern teams, scrims tend to go very bad for the Western teams, and I can say that from experience. And also I assume we hear pretty much in every interview every year that Western teams are always getting smashed at the beginning of the tournament. So then, well, if you are getting smashed, you will probably play whatever they play because you think it's not only your play, it's also the champion, right? And it's always a little bit of both. Of course, they are playing better than you, and you have to catch up, most likely, when it comes to mechanics and team play. But maybe their drafts are also somewhat smarter, right? So I think that's kind of how I see it, at least. And of course, when we go to Worlds, between Worlds and playoffs, there's like around 3 patches, like every year, I think. So that kind of depends on that as well. I mean, all the teams are trying to figure out the meta.
Got it. All right. Thank you for that insight. That's great. Let's wrap up taking a look at Group A, because we talked a lot about FPX, talked a little bit about
Cloud9? We're not going to talk
Rogue.
about Cloud9?
That's what I'm saying. We're getting to Cloud9. If y'all missed it, Dom, I don't know if it's a VOD. Go back and watch Dom's VOD of the playthrough. That was probably my favorite moment of the year of your co-streams, dude. It was. We were all there. When they do the commercials and they're like, all right, yeah, actor fan, you're going to put your hands in your head and then you're going to like cover your mouth. You're going to do the Viper pose and all that shit. And I'm like, real fans don't do that. I did all of that shit during the Rogue game and the Cloud9 game. It was infuriating. It was amazing. And even before the game ended, I tweeted out, this is going to go down as a messy Worlds classic. Like, it was crazy, the angles that Doinb was able to find, to the pressure that LeBlanc of Perkz was getting. And then we had sleeper agents, we're like, oh shit, it's sleeper agent Perkz. And then Zven gets caught on the top side and we're like, oh shit, we forgot about the other sleeper agent. And then it was a ton of fun. I wanted to get your thoughts on the tiebreaker match in Cloud9 moving forward here, Monty.
I mean, it was very thrilling. I admit that. It was definitely on a razor's edge. I think that people will be confused as to why the praise for Perkz was coming out of that game, because he did almost throw it on numerous occasions.
Oh my God.
But he also...
He was the only one doing anything. He was the only one that did anything the entire game.
Yes, exactly.
It was like he either inted or won the game.
Yeah, for sure. but that's often I see Perkz LeBlanc doing this thing though. Like I remember when he was playing LeBlanc against RNG in Game 5 in 2018 as well. Back then he was actually not inting as much. I feel like throughout this BO1 between Rogue and Cloud9, I even remember, he explained in the interview where he W'd over the wall and then he was out of there. And then he wanted to like macro his clone and then he went bad and then just died for no reason. I was like, wait, what? I couldn't believe it. I was like, oh wow, my old mid laner is washed up now because he went to a nade. That was actually what I was thinking when I saw it. But of course, right? He was doing so many good plays. He was, kind of everywhere on the map, pressuring Rogue quite a lot. And I also think that the LeBlanc pick made sense in the game. LeBlanc Lee Sin have so much early game priority when it comes to these skirmishes, and you can pretty much take every fight. You can also go out of every fight. So I feel like it fits Perkz style. It probably fits Blabber style as well. I assume he plays some Lee Sin too. So for me the game was a banger.
Oh yeah. Dom.
Your thoughts. but back to like I agree that with Perkz, the reason why he was it's fine. The reason why he was getting the praise is because people will look at it, and if you want to view Perkz's play in a negative light, it's not that hard given what he was doing during the game. But as Dom's saying, he was also the only active player, and the thing about Perkz that is amazing is that he takes risks and plays proactively in ways that most other players in high pressure situations would not. And ultimately, as long as the risk isn't too great, he's not going to lose the game. But every time he makes one of these plays, there's a chance he wins it, which I think is why it's so impressive to watch him still.
And I would say also, like, when you're watching the games, there was no player, like, you watched another tiebreak between Gen.G and MAD Lions, and there was no player like that in that game. You know, like, everyone is kind of just, you know, it's number one when you're doing the tiebreak. It's at the end of the day. You've already played 3 games on stage. I mean, in MAD Lions' case, they'd played 4. But you're in a situation where you don't have the energy and you don't really want to, like, make mistakes. So being able to actually have that mindset where you're willing to just put pressure on the enemy team and then fail and then keep on keeping that mindset. I think that's really impressive because most players will have that mindset up until the first bad thing happens. And then they're like, fuck, I just inted really hard. Now I'm just not going to int anymore. I'm just going to make sure that I, like, calm down. And I feel like Perkz never does that. I think that's really impressive. I think the other thing that I really liked about this just whole day from Cloud9 is they actually played their best league. You know, I think that this is probably the best, a couple best of ones they've had. And normally when you watch NA teams, I think the most frustrating part is even when Asian teams choke, which happens quite frequently. Like, I think generally speaking, in best of ones, Asian teams play a lot worse than they do later on in the tournament. I feel like we saw this at MSI. C9 would just play somehow even worse themselves. They see, like, the other team choking, they're like, oh, we got to even choke harder. It's like, it's just this weird, like, mental issue that I feel like these teams have where for once an NA team actually performed when it mattered, and they actually just played their best league. And I think that that's something that we normally don't see. We just normally see them be so okay with losing. It looked like Cloud9 actually got over that mental hurdle that they had at MSI.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me of what happened with 100 Thieves in their do or die game with T1. It was just like, all right, we're losing.
That's how it always looks.
We got to engage.
Oh my God, that was disgusting. I mean, no.
No, it was absolutely fucking atrocious. But that's how normally it looks like. And we even saw a little bit of that in like, you know, the first game between TL and Gen.G in Group D. You have this, like, thing where it's almost like you just, even though the game isn't lost, you feel like it's already lost just based off what you're seeing from the mentality of the players. So yeah, I mean, I was pretty happy with it.
But I also think that, like, like when it comes to that group, I did like the MAD Lions LNG one, because I think MAD Lions LNG one, I did see a lot of proactive plays, especially from MAD Lions, and as much as they didn't work out in the early game, and it actually did put them quite behind, you know, especially like the dives from Elioya. They were proactive, you know, and even though they were playing for their lives, and if they lose that game, they are out of the tournament. It's kind of the same as Cloud9, right? I mean, the whole team was trying their best to actually still be proactive, to still make plays. And when they fell behind at some point, I felt like they will outscale. Rakan, by the way, giga broken champ. And Ale had to win a lot on the cannon to make it happen. But, you know, the comeback happened and MAD Lions did win that one. But I still, I really enjoy watching the early game, you know. They're just trying to be proactive, diving top lane, early game, making a lot of plays, making a lot of ganks happen. And in a different occasion, you know, this is a BO5 against like DAMWON or someone, and that kind of 5th game can dictate how the BO5 will go. So
I just appreciate that we got to see MAD Lions in the form that we expected to see them in this tournament, because it felt just, they felt really off in that first week or the first round robin. And for me, I mean, this is like classic MAD Lions that we saw in the playoffs. It's like, okay, so Carzzy's going to be on Ezreal, which is one of his best champs. We get Humanoid on LeBlanc. We get Armid on Gnar. I mean, you know what you're going to get. The problem is like, even when they fail these dives, is that they have an ability to play from behind, and they have a certain mentality that sticks them into these games, and they're able to find opportunities. We saw this when they played against Rogue in the playoffs, right? Now in back-to-back splits. So I think like this is the MAD Lions that can play very well from behind, and that can find fights that they want to find on champions that they're very comfortable with, and that makes them always dangerous, which I like.
Right. the point of being comfortable on those champs, it makes them comfortable to play from behind. So it's like, hey, we can do these plays because even if we're from behind, we played these champs on stage so many times that they can do it even if they messed up and still be proactive. Sorry, hopefully I didn't just say what you just said, Monty. What I was trying to say is they're okay with playing from behind with these champs specifically.
Well, it was just disappointed because you didn't see that kind of like verve from them in the first round robin, and I feel like you definitely got it. So they clearly made some mental adjustments. Elyoya also played better. I think Elyoya was just weirdly off. I think he was still kind of off for that's why I'm not too high on them in the playoffs, is like Elyoya needs to get his shit together a little bit, but I think overall I am encouraged, and it seems like the longer we go on into these playoffs, like the stronger MAD Lions is going to become, which I think is exciting.
I love that because Elyoya can be their best player, and I forget sometimes he's a rookie. This is his first Worlds ever, and like, Elyoya, get your shit together, man. Like, you only get one shot at this. You never know what's gonna happen. So, Elyoya kind of
bro, those Kiana mechanics,
when he's doing better.
Those Kiana mechanics on the top dives, bro, that remind me of like 2019 G2 Kiana, bro.
Okay, bro. I knew this was going. I made the same joke actually. I made the same joke in my stream when this happened. Like, I was live viewing it and I saw it and I was like, wow, I didn't see such a bad Kiana ever since I played it. Like in 2019. But yeah, definitely. But I do think that this was the only game where he actually played bad, and then every other game I think he played like somewhat fine. So some games even good, and I mean. The only thing that Monty said, right? Even if they become stronger and stronger as the time passes, they do play DAMWON next round. So I don't know how much time they have now. About a week left, and then I mean, I'm hoping that they can make it. I mean, they almost made it during MSI, right? Like, it was a BO5. They ended up losing the 5th game in the end, but I actually think that MAD Lions showing at least the form from the second part of group stage, I think they could do well, definitely.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point. Although I will say there are some caveats. Now, DAMWON is playing way better than they did at MSI. That's undeniable. Sure. Like, Khan is doing great so far in this tournament.
Khan is doing really well.
Yeah, he's actually super scary right now. I think he is he's like top of the damage percent on his team. So I mean, the carry resources that they're putting into him have been pretty intense so far, and he's actually delivering on those. And then when we talk about the matchup in top lane, like, I think that's probably pretty fucking hard for Armit. But I think the other caveat on the other side is that DAMWON got a much weaker group than expected, so I don't really know how to read their current strength, because yes, they went 6-0, but all of the teams in that group underperformed, in my opinion, based on the strength of their rosters.
But that's the thing that I wanted to get to. We said that Cloud9 threw their best league out there in week 2, and they still didn't win. So like, I think that just DAMWON are on a level that we haven't seen yet. We're on a level that we haven't seen yet at Worlds, because Cloud9, we saw they were able to get past a struggling FPX. They're able to outlast and out-mental Rogue. So we actually kind of don't know the level of both those teams, I think. We just know that DAMWON is better than Cloud9.
I think that's a good point, because DAMWON also didn't have to win that game, so I can't imagine that they were playing their best League of Legends, because it literally fucking didn't matter, and they still won, which says a lot.
I was saying that I think that they should have lost that game. They should have intentionally lost that game.
I think they should have intentionally lost it, for sure.
I just think that it's a competitive thing that you just like. I mean, it's just the format, right? like, there's just times where it's better for, I mean, you don't have to actually go into the game and int. You can just play your sub. And I think it's completely understandable, because why should you show anything that you don't have to show in a game that doesn't matter for you ever? Even if it doesn't have anything to do with knocking out another team. But like, especially if it's FPX on the line, you don't want to risk FPX actually showing up and being good in a best of 5. Like, you'd rather just fucking kill it when they look terrible.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of agree, but I also disagree, just because I think from the logic of, winning Worlds and trying to eliminate the best teams as soon as possible, so you don't have to face FPX and BO5 in case of them making it all the way to finals. I think, from pro play point of view, you always want to kind of try your best, and you don't really want to grieve a game. And also, if someone catches you doing that, I mean, you can grieve a game most likely in a way where people will not catch on. but it still feels so fucking bad, you know? Like, there's no way any pro player would willingly, I hope, int it.
Well, no, but that's what I'm saying is you don't even need to int it. You can literally just play your sub, and then it's like, okay, you're kind of inting by doing that. I mean, what we saw, what's weird is for some reason the community was really against this idea in this situation, but we literally saw a team do this earlier, and everyone had their back, which was the same exact thing, where 100 Thieves got an advantage by fielding their full sub roster on the last day to avoid playing TL in group, or essentially to let EG be in their side of the bracket instead of TL. Some shit like that. So they did the same exact thing where they subbed in 5 subs. They had their full academy lineup play, and everyone was like, yeah, it's their choice. It's competitive, like, advantage of just, like, being in that position. They did the right thing. But then if DAMWON did it, suddenly DAMWON would be the villain. I just don't understand, like, the hypocrisy of the community in that situation, because it's literally the same team doing it 2 times. Or it's the same type of thing.
The people who speak English are all fans of the Western teams, so they're just aggrieved by the potential gall of DAMWON doing it, because they don't want to see a Korean team, you know, manipulating the group. But, you know, frankly, this is a format problem. You just don't make formats that cause these problems.
I mean,
that's my advice.
There's other situations, like the other thing that we saw was LNG. They were getting shit on by MAD Lions, right? They should have FF'd the game at 15. Because if you're getting shit on by a team, you don't want to face them again. You'd rather face another team. If they had lost the game quicker, then they could avoid playing against MAD Lions in the tiebreak or whatever, because it was based on game time and they had the fastest, MAD Lions had the slowest. They could have 15 FF'd that game and gotten an advantage out of it. I mean, this is just what you have to do. I feel like in a tournament, if you really want to win, you have to be thinking about all these like external factors, because your goal is to not benefit the rest of the teams in the tournament. It's to benefit yourself. So, well, at least that's my opinion on this.
I think they probably do think about it, and no one just has the balls to pull the trigger on it, right? Because of how it would look, how it would come off. I think the substitute thing would have worked fine. But I think when we go back to, was it LNG FFing? I don't think LNG were going to FF that game, or whoever was going to FF that game. That just felt like too gaming the system. And the way that I think a team can justify looking at it is, hey, we did well enough to be in this position to game this bad system. Why not? But I think to Jankos' point, players are just going to try to win. They just want to win. They're on the rails.
I mean, also, if you're LNG and you can, sure, you get shit on by MAD Lions, but you can face them again and actually win. That's kind of pog, no? It's maybe my cockiness speaking, but if a team fucks me in the ass, okay, yeah. So if I lose to a team, I wouldn't mind playing them again, as soon as possible, in fact. So, it's just players.
Our preparation didn't work the first time? Well, surely the same amount of preparation will work at time number 2. And we'd rather risk that than go to the quarterfinals.
I mean, look, I was in the same
I like your
position.
mentality.
I think part of the reason why I'm so pro doing this type of stuff is I truly believe that one of the seasons I didn't go to Worlds in season 5 was because we did not game the system like this, where there was a tiebreaker match for first place in regular season, where it was us versus CLG, and I'm pretty sure they intentionally lost. They picked Nautilus jungle in fucking season 5 meta when Nidalee was the most broken jungler in the game. So I was playing Nidalee into Nautilus jungle, and I wanted to int this game because it meant that we wouldn't get TSM in our side of the bracket. We would get the side of the bracket with Tip, which Tip was just so much worse than TSM, even though Tip was higher than them in the standings.
Gate, baby.
Yep. And I because we ended up doing this, we had to play TSM in semifinals instead of Tip in semifinals. So I just think that in general, having just if the system can be gamed like this, I feel like that's the system's fault, not your fault.
Yeah. I actually had the opportunity to chat with someone, and it just feels like the system is not going to change anytime soon. The league formats from around the world do their job to get the best of the best to the championship, and then they still have, as we brought it before and Monty has pushed back, logistical barriers to hey, it spends X amount of millions of dollars, and they have to hold up their one game at a time ideal. And so I think they're probably not going to change the format. As much as people are, until someone games it, they're not going to change the format.
Here's what's so bad about this, though, is that this is the year to experiment with expanded formats because traditionally there's no fans. You're not moving cities. So normally you do like groups in one place and then move to quarters, move to semis, move to finals, which takes, I've done this, right? It takes a lot of time to do these traveling, move to an entirely different location, oftentimes a different country if you're doing it in Europe. But when you're just doing it in Iceland, you can actually just sit there and use the entire week to do this. So you could have expanded groups. Like, Shocks pointed out to me on Twitter that they have 7 best of 5s over 3 weeks. You could easily do a double elimination bracket right now. You could have changed it and said, well, since we're all going to be in one location, we can actually just do a few more days and do a double elim bracket and just test it. Just fucking test it out. This is your shot, right? This is your shot. You're not locked into your old system right now. Be fucking creative. It's infuriating.
Yep. And it's the same thing. I mean, I tweeted out earlier today, but like, how sad is it that after a full year of competitive League of Legends, we can only get max one NA versus EU match at Worlds, best of 5. And that would be at finals. How fucking unlikely is that? NA versus EU in the finals. That'd be the only time with the system that we could actually get an NA versus EU match, because so few teams obviously make it out of groups, and then the way the bracket works is no double elimination. You guys get it. How about this one? You could only get max 3 best of 5s the entire year between LCK and LPL. Isn't that what everyone is like talking about? Yeah, everyone's been talking about, is LPL better, is LCK better? I mean, obviously right now it looks like LCK is better at this tournament, but LPL won MSI, DAMWON won Worlds. Before that, LPL had won the last 2 Worlds. Like, there was the mid-season championship, which LPL won, so it like looks like a pretty fucking good rivalry between these 2 regions, and especially with all the storylines of so many LPL players being former LCK players. I just think that there's a lot of excitement. So we keep on getting these groups. Last year, obviously, there's more LCK teams that got out this year than LPL, but even last year there was 3 LPL teams, 3 LCK teams, all made it out. There was 1 best of 5 between LPL and LCK.
Yeah, that's because they killed each other. Or in the other examples, fucking Jankos over here in the Worlds that LPL won, he was out there killing all the LCK teams, so we never got to see the matchups. Fuck you, Jankos.
That's fun times, though. Fun times.
With all that said, I'm just quick news in case people don't know. There is a new global head of LoL Esports that was hired, Naz. She
wasn't hired. She's been there for like a decade.
Well, promoted,
she was promoted internally.
That was my point. Naz, there's now a new head kind of creating a role, and something that's kind of happening right now is there's a lot of esports happening at Riot, and I think they're recognizing, we just like tripled to quadrupled our esports. We need to create positions so that there's responsibilities so that it runs smoother. Naz now taking control of LoL Esports, which will still feed under John Needham, who is the global head of all esports at Riot. So anyway, if someone's going to make the change, it would be her. So
someday they're going to invent GSL groups, just like they invented esports, and they're going to just have a parade for themselves while they pat themselves on the back and say, hey, we figured out that we can put 4 teams in a double elimination bracket. Congratulations to Riot Games. And they do it every time. we did it. We did it. And everyone's gonna be like, no, the wheel was already invented. And they'll be like, look at our cool wheel. It's the best wheel ever. No one thought of the wheel before.
Yeah, it's actually happening right now at the Esports Business Summit, as you know, Fonzie. All right, so we talked about a couple of Western teams. Let's talk about the ones that not so good. Let's we'll go to 100th. Let's go to Team Liquid first, because they're part of the group that MAD Lions didn't make it out. They showed up. They played with a lot more proactivity, I would say, in their second week, as all Western teams always do. They always forget, hey, the other teams are better than us, so we have to play with a more unique strategy. Almost all of them. Sorry, Jankos. And so TL came out firing. They won a couple, weren't able to get over the hump against MAD Lions in the middle of it. And that actually worried me. I was like, oh, shit. Like, they won their hard game. They lost to the team they beat before. I wonder if their mental is going to be broken. No, they came back. They're able to beat Generation Gaming, and everything looked okay. And we go back to the tiebreaker there for them. let's just talk about this Team Liquid team just as a whole here, Dom. What did you see from week 2 Team Liquid?
Well, I mean, I think that they definitely honed in on some certain picks. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of the Trundle in all of these games. Like, normally I'm of the opinion that if you're not playing against anything that has Aftershock, or you're not playing against a tank as Trundle, and then the enemy AD carry and the enemy mid laner are both mobile, I think Trundle is just generally a bad pick. So I felt like they went into comfort, but I will say their mentality looked a lot better. I mean, I was pretty happy with all the NA teams' performance at Worlds. I think they definitely massively stepped their game up from what we watched in LCS playoffs. So I was really happy with the level of performance overall. I mean, I think coming into this, like, even though TL technically did get 4th in this group, I think it was a much better 4th than anyone could have expected. They won 3 games. And I thought Jensen stepped up a lot on the final day. So, I mean,
Santorin was also very good.
Yeah, I mean, I would say overall it was an overperformance. I was pretty happy with what I saw. I think that they really fought, and at the end of the day, they fell slightly short. But I mean, at least NA teams are not going there just to lose and get on the plane to go home. At least we didn't see any of them going out like bitches like we saw last year. Like, we just exactly, bro, exactly. I don't even need to say it. Yankos can hate TSM for me. I'm not gonna even give the TSM haters. That shit was just depressing to watch because TSM never even showed up to Worlds, right? Like, they just got there. They're like, you know what? Like, and TSM was in the same situation, right? Like, it was pretty much the same exact group, right? If you think about it, it was Gen.G, it was a European team that was like pretty good, and then it was just the 4th seed from LPL. It's like the same group that TSM played in, but TSM was just so okay losing. Even when they were winning games, they would lose games. So, I mean, at least TL showed up and they, fucking put their dicks on the table and played the game. So, respect.
Yeah, I mean, I think they did decently well as well. I think. I would never say that MAD Lions should lose to a team like Team Liquid, just because, for me at least, MAD just has better players and are a better team. But they did somehow lose in the first stage of the group stage. I think for the second one, I was pretty confident that MAD would beat them. And as Dom already mentioned, I think they played the Trundle twice, right? One time they played against MAD Lions, and I think they pulled it in a different game. And I think they won one Trundle game, didn't they? And they lost one.
Yep.
I think that when you play Trundle, I experienced it as well. When you play Trundle into champions like Rakan, I think it's actually just unplayable. Because your champ, the only purpose you have is pillar someone immobile and then one-shot that person. But if enemy team has jungle, which is, I mean, no jungle honestly is that bad against Trundle right now. I think good matchup is Viego, so something they picked it into, but it's only a matchup when it comes to one-on-one. If Viego gets a reset, then Trundle is whatever, right? And then enemy team also has Rakan. And Rakan is really fucking happy playing against Trundle because Trundle is not going to do shit to Rakan. And Rakan has the freest engage of his life. So either Core JJ lands a Q, or maybe a gold card goes on Rakan, or the Rakan has the freest game. And I think often actually I see MAD Rakan carrying games, and I think Team Liquid was one of the games where I really liked the Rakan. And the game against LNG where MAD was trolling a little bit the early game or misplaying it, but still trying. I think the Rakan, especially when he flanked in the Nash pit, when LNG was finishing Nash, they got the Nash, but then Rakan got a 4-man engage and 3-man Nar ult into the wall. I just think this champ is so giga OP if you can survive the laning phase and go into mid game. One champ can instantly win your team fight, just instantly.
Yep. What do you think about more Rakan into these Yuumi picks, or do you think that Yuumi is just too good? Because Yuumi is kind of, I feel the same type of thing, but I just don't know if Yuumi is so fucking OP right now that. Or the teams just don't have a counter to it. I've been of the opinion the whole time that I don't believe that Yuumi is actually this unbeatable champion. There's no counters in the game. What happened to all the old counters that used to be in the game? I remember when you guys beat Fnatic, right? In 2020 spring, they were picking Yuumi every single game. You guys were playing Lulu Cog into it all the time. It's you guys want to scale with Yuumi? Okay, well, we're going to scale even harder with an enchanter that just beats it. I don't know where these ideas came from that this champion is just completely OP. And I would like to see teams play Rakan hard engage and actually see if that's a viable win condition, or other enchanters that also scale similarly well, Sona or Lulu or one of these types of picks. I just feel this champion is getting way too much respect.
I think it's a little bit of, first of all, I think the team should be able to test in scrims, and then if it doesn't work, then you're not going to do it on stage. Second of all, I think even if it works in scrims, or it's 50-50, are you willing to open up Yuumi in a BO1 scenario knowing he's a strong champion? And are you willing to take the risk to play into her? And then if something doesn't work out, she's gonna, get out of control, especially if we are going with the either Rakan, which hopefully will be strong, or even you build something like now Tilus or Leona and you just try to like, punish her early game or out-roam her or maybe gank her, dive her. I just feel like it's very hard to punish Yuumi right now, and a lot of the hyper carry top lane champions, I really like the Yuumi Gwen combination that even PSG presented to us, and I really dislike how Hanabi was playing that game. I feel like when he was ahead with Gwen at 3 items, and he had Yuumi with him, one time he literally ran into the team fight and he just Yuumi pressed ult and, Gwen presses W and she's kind of unkillable, does so much damage. I feel like that could be abused so much more throughout the game. But I feel like Hanabi was actually heavily misplaying a lot with the power Yuumi brought onto this Gwen. And often I just see a lot of skirmish champions in the jungle, especially, right? You have something like Lee Sin, you have something like, Lee Sin's kind of high prior band a lot. But you have something like Jarvan even, you have something like Viego going with Yuumi, getting that one reset off. And even if he doesn't get that reset, Yuumi can just jump around and heal everyone. I just feel like it's super obnoxious. And I think if I'm at the tournament, I would definitely be willing to try Rakan into it. And then just because I feel like Rakan should have like either similar or also a powerful scaling. And then if that doesn't work, I'm not sure if I'll be willing to play something like Lulu, because I feel like Lulu, you can catch. Yuumi, you have to pray that either she misplays her E or she just, you win the team fight because everyone dies so you can kill Yuumi. But champions like Lulu or Sona, even like you mentioned, or even Nami, we see a little bit with Lucian, you can actually just catch them, You lock her down, it's just instantly one shot. Like one skill shot hits from far away, boom. There's no Nami.
I mean, T1's been playing the Lulu.
Yeah, so
they
that's
did
what I
it
was going to
twice.
bring up. So T1 played the Lulu into EDG's Yuumi. That was like the Talon game where it was like Talon into the Lulu, TF, and Poppy from EDG. But it looked really good for T1 when they were playing the Philios Lulu into MF Yuumi in lane. It felt like they just had pushed the whole time, like 20 CS lead. They're able to get plates. Like, I don't know. I felt like that was looked pretty
it worked
viable
into
there.
DFM as well. They did the same thing with the Aphelios Lulu into Jin Yuumi, and I think you see teams that are starting to experiment with this, and obviously it must be going on in scrims. I think in a best of 5 scenario, we're going to see a lot more Yuumi.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. I think in a BO5 scenario, we'll for sure see more teams opening up Yuumi. Even Lee Sin. I also think that Lee Sin, as much as it's a blind pick into every jungle, I think you can play Lee Sin into like anything in the meta. I also feel like people maybe have a little bit too much priority on it. I feel like you can actually play like even Jarvan, if you make a draft around it, sure, Lee Sin is good into Jarvan, but if you make a draft around it, Jarvan can also be a very powerful tool, very powerful champion. Same goes for, even Viego into Lee Sin, or, I mean, if you really want to push it, you could play Talon, Kiana. These are probably slightly worse, right? But I just feel like teams could open up that one, and definitely the Yuumi. I think they will in a BO5.
We're going into T1 and Group B, so I kind of wanted to dive into 100 Thieves here because that was the NA representative in that group. 100 Thieves, they were sitting at 1 and 2, needed to beat T1 at least to start the run for the rest of the day, kind of in the same position that Team Liquid was in. And that draft, that was highly scrutinized by analysts, that it was the Engage versus Poke. T1 played a Poke comp, 100 Thieves played an Engage comp, and they just got suffocated up until the base, never really found an Engage angle with the Malphite with the Leona, I believe it was. And the game just closed itself right there. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. And then afterwards, once they're out, they rifle off 2 wins against EDG and I forgot. Detonation Focus Is that the other team? Yeah. In that group. Let's dive into 100 Thieves and their run here, Monty.
Look, I don't have a big read on 100 Thieves. I think they came in with a strong group of individual players. They always had issues in the late game. They always had issues in their decision making when it came, past 20, 25 minutes into the game. But they also, you have to remember, they got screwed in terms of practice. Like, this is not a team that had anywhere near the level of preparation that other teams did coming into this event. So we expected them to leave in groups. They performed about how I thought they would. I don't think they embarrassed themselves. I think on the whole, and to go back to our point earlier, when we look at the NA teams, this is the strongest group of players that NA has ever sent to a world championship. That's not even
by far.
Yeah, by a long shot. So I was very concerned after the first round robin that these teams were, severely underperforming. And I think in the end, NA like left this tournament with a pretty good showing overall. Liquid turned up on the second round robin. Cloud9 made it through the quarterfinals and played probably the best League of Legends they've played this year. And 100 Thieves, I don't think they did super badly in the second round robin too. I think they were a victim of circumstance, of closer not being there and them not being able to scrim. They were just playing EU solo queue up until like less than 2 weeks before the competition. So, you know, I just feel bad for them mostly, but I don't read too much into that in these performances. They were also, I think, kind of held back in certain ways by limitations from their players, like Sumday's strength right now. I think if you're going to get rid of a player on the team, you probably have to look at Sumday right now, which sucks because he just got his green card. But I just don't see in a world where you come into this tournament and the meta is so top lane focused, and we literally are looking at a meta where the top damage percentage players are Nuguri, Khan, and Kana, right? The teams that, I mean, FPX didn't do well, but two of the teams that did very well are investing huge amounts of resources in their top lane carries. And some days just, he's not that guy. So I think the combination of lack of practice as well as this striking certain weaknesses within their roster really made this tournament very hard for 100 Thieves. And they still did okay. They still beat EDG. Like, that's not bad.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't... For me, it's the progression of things that makes me not very happy with 100 Thieves. I mean, the way they went out versus 100 or versus T1, I just thought was really sad. I mean, that's just classic NA.
Sure.
You have all the engage tools. We didn't do anything. Then even the DFM game afterwards, it still felt like they were still like that pressure on them where it's like, okay, well, we don't want to embarrass ourselves and lose to the Japanese team. But that was a game they should have lost. Like, let's be honest, they were really fucking far behind in that game.
That's
and
true.
then the only game I think that they played well in was the game versus EDG when they're already eliminated and they actually have nothing to lose. So it's one of those things where like that's the classic NA experience at Worlds where, you know, it's like maybe you can have a little bit of hope, but it looks pretty far off. I think them getting out of this group seems almost impossible based off what we saw, even though they did beat EDG. So I just think that for me, I just hated to see the mindset of them. It felt like the pressure really like got to them and they underperformed in multiple games because of it.
I think they had already lost coming in because they were so unconfident from their lack of prep, I think. So they were already in their own heads, I think, before they even played a game.
Yeah, I think it also depends like who is the vocal voice of the team. Because, for example, if one teams became good because of, I know, Closer, then for him, it's second Worlds, right?
Yep.
Is it?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, and Sunday is pretty experienced as well. I'm not sure. I just feel like if you are experienced players, you shouldn't really get pressure get to you, and especially if you have like so many chances at winning games, because you know, technically, sure we have one group stage, but 6 games you play, right? Like you play each team once, so there's so many games where you can perform, and the best performance, as you guys mentioned the other day, was in the tiebreaker where it didn't matter. And then the game against the Japanese team, I don't even remember if that game mattered, but I was watching this game a little bit and I was thinking to myself, like, what the fuck? Are they actually going to lose against Detonation Focus me, you know?
And they did. I mean, DFM was in their base, so...
Yeah, and I remember an interview from the Japanese team as well, where they said, like, oh, we really want to win one game in BOA in the group stage because we just made it to group stage for the first time ever, and we feel like it's going to be against 100 Thieves. And then I watched this game and I'm like, oh my god, that's like actually so cringe to lose to that team. But I mean, in the end, they did come back, right? And
I mean, C9 lost to them too, so you know it's okay. We've already taken an L to Detonation Focus Me at this Worlds.
Okay. All right. Yes, we did. And then the last Western team to take a look at, and we didn't really dive into this group, was one Fnatic. We haven't talked about Fnatic. Fnatic turned up a little bit more in, I guess, week 2 for them. We know it has been highly documented, some of the struggles that they had. Obviously, Upset leaving with a family emergency. That means Bean comes in, Adam is new, Bwipo in the jungle. Niski turning up and was like, what was it, Noski or Noski or Nodski? I forgot what.
It was Nidsky.
There it is. It was Nidsky.
Or Nidki, I think.
It was something ridiculous. he didn't have a tournament first half. No one on that team really felt pretty good after the first half, but they find a little bit of life, but not quite able to get over the hump and get out of groups. So, Jankos, I'll throw this one to you. Like, how did you feel about Fnatic's performance here at Worlds, including the second week?
I did think that they will make it out of groups, but then upset happened. So for me, at least, from my experience with Fnatic over playing against them for like a couple of years now, of course they changed the rosters, right? But at least this roster, I feel like for me at least, it's like kind of emotional roster. If things are going right, they will really go right, and they are all on the same page, and they are all in sync or making plays together, and these plays will work. At least it worked in playoffs, it worked throughout the summer split, and ever since they became this 5 after changing players between spring and summer, they actually did quite well in my opinion. And big part of that was upset. And Hylissang dominating bot lanes, around Europe, being very consistent, very strong. Hylissang knowing, well, not always knowing. He does like to die, but he does have pretty decent roams, and he does have pretty decent skirmishes around the map. And I feel like Adam was also not a bad addition to the team. I don't think he brings, a lot of experience. Of course, he's just a rookie, and he did show that quite a lot, because I think even when Fnatic started performing in the second stage of groups, I feel like he was the one inting a lot, and even he still had like the strength to come back, and he still was useful in these games, especially the Jace game, I think, where he went like 0-5 or 0-6 at some point even. I'm not sure if it was that extreme, but then he actually did find TP flanks, and he did find a lot of damage on the carries. A lot of EQs were landing from him, so he had like a decent game. But yeah, I think at least from what I saw when it comes to Fnatic, absolute mental breakdown for the first part of group stage. Upset, family emergency, not being the problem, not being the solution. Hylissang blind picking Pyke, being absolutely just totally fucking useless, running around dying on cooldown for no reason. I lost hope, when Fnatic went 0-3, I actually lost all my hope. I was like, okay, my pick camps are done. This team is like mentally breaking down. They probably hate their lives, like one of their best players just left, had to go home, and they probably just hate being there, But actually they did pick up, and I don't know what happened between the Fnatic.
I do know what happened.
Okay.
I know what happened.
I kind of know what happened as well, but they did pick up a lot of their mental state for, second part of group. Bwipo played much better. I think Hylissang played much better as well. I think Adam was the only one who was still like struggling, but he was still part of the team. I also think that they had like some pretty decent draft ideas, and they still, did play on Niski. I also feel like Niski has a good champion pool currently for this meta. I think he's pretty good on Ryze. I think he's pretty good on TF, and I think these two champions is kind of... It's quite important to be good at these champs. He's also decent on Sylas. Then I'm not even sure if he plays LeBlanc. I'm not sure if he played LeBlanc throughout the tournament. He doesn't like come to me as a LeBlanc player. But anyway, I think these three champs should be somewhat enough. And they had good games. And they almost made it out, right? I mean, not that almost, but at least they won a few games. And I am really happy for them to leave Worlds on winning a couple of games and showing how good they could perform. Yeah, but even, they were also close in other games. And keep in mind that when you have a roster and you feel like, you can do very well, and then randomly one player is just gone, like, it takes a lot of mental fortitude to be able to still, like, perform to expectations. And they weren't able to do that in the first half, but they were in the second half. That's how I see it.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was a look at all the Western teams. We looked at all of them, right? Yeah.
I'm not sure if we covered Rogue that much. We just talked about Odwamne inting, but
yes. Okay. Yes,
that's good enough. That's right. I mean,
that's
played well.
I mean, we could talk about Hans smurfing, I guess, but we don't have to.
That's right. Hans had some of the best stats across all groups, all players in all groups. Kind of dragging that team to a tiebreaker situation. Go ahead, Dom. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say that I think that we glossed over it, but maybe Monty wants to comment on a little bit of like how Fnatic was able to find their footing, because going into it,
look at this. Is this just like the Bwipo's girlfriend hot potato where everybody just passes it around and I'm the one who ends up holding it in the end?
I'll fucking hold this shit. I'll hold this.
I'm not gonna lie.
I'm
not gonna lie. I was thinking, what kind of show is this? Is this face check? It's not face check. This is Jungle, so I don't know if I'm bringing it up.
Look. I think this is fucking ridiculous. Like the characterization of the. So first off, I don't care if this actually happened or not. Like that's fine. If Bwipo, if you got the inner strength from your significant other to rally this team together for the second round robin, that's fine. Don't say that publicly, man. Like, come on. It sounds so insane when you write it down. It's like, I realized that, I was mentally defeated, basically, and that I wasn't the one bringing together the team, but I found the inspiration for my leadership in my girlfriend. And it's like, this reads like a fucking fairy tale. What world do you actually inhabit right now, Bwipo?
True
like,
love.
What's going on in your mind? And also, like, why do you need that? Why do you need that? Why is this even in the conversation? Because it just makes it more complicated for your teammates, dude. Like, your teammates don't need to hear this. Just keep that between you and your girlfriend. And if that's the case and you got the inspiration, good for you. I'm glad it helped your team. But don't like rope everyone into this like crazy relationship.
And that's the one thing that I really hated about the whole thing is that essentially, like, not only is he saying that the credit goes to his girlfriend for everything that happened in week 2 in terms of like the team's like mental recovery, but he also like takes credit for that himself. It's like through her, he like she was able to enable him to then like lead the whole team and get everyone's like mind right so that the whole team could perform. Which is like, I think that's way too far. I think that really undermines the rest of your teammates. You're telling me Yamato's like one of the most, like, you see how Yamato acts. You're telling me that guy had no influence, that he was just sitting there. He's like, I can't fucking fix it, bro. I just can't fix it. And then Bwipo's girlfriend like came down and was like, no, I will lead the team. Play some fucking ARAMs and then the team will be saved. And then they just did it. And they're like, holy shit, this fucking works. We just need more ARAMs. They just fire the coach here. Bwipo's girlfriend's coaching next year. Like, what the fuck is happening? What world is this that we're living in where this is like, this is a relationship that is so public? And the other thing that I don't understand is this, right? Generally, if you bring up, like, obviously people are fucking psychopaths and will send death threats to any person that is public, period, whenever there's any type of way where you have fucked up and now in the community's eyes, you are deserving of death threats, right? Like when I get a Reddit thread, like it's the same fucking thing. I'm sure when Monty had to sell his team, there was probably the same exact thing happening. When G2 loses, I'm sure if Jankos has his DMs open, people are going to start being fucking ridiculous. But the way that you minimize this type of thing from happening, dGon, no one knows who you are, okay? I've been working with you for 3 years, I still
get
trying to figure it out.
Dude. Oh, the Jizuke thing. The Jizuke
He's
thing.
cool. He's cool enough to get death threats, Dom. How dare you?
Okay, you can get it on the death threats here. My point is this: the way that you minimize getting death threats is not putting random. Like, if you don't want your girlfriend to get death threats, then why are you constantly putting her in the public eye? It just seems so strange that
that's
like
a bad idea.
When you add extra people into the public eye, it just means that they are going to then be incorporated with the adoration of the community at points, but then also like the negativity of the community. So the best way to minimize this is keep people out of the public eye.
I literally kept my relationship with my wife secret from the public for years until we got married. And I, at that point in time, it's like kind of hard to hide your relationship. If you're a public figure. But until I got married, nobody knew that, like, everybody behind the scenes knew, but nobody in the public knew that that Susie and I were in a relationship. And part of that was because I didn't want to have people attacking either of us based on our relationship status. And to this day, I have made, I think, 2 tweets ever about my son in the year and a half since he was born, because I don't want to introduce him to that shit either, because people were saying horrible things when I posted a picture of him when he was born. It's fucked up. So yeah,
shit.
don't.
I don't know. Congrats, bro.
Good. I'm glad you don't know. I'm glad you don't know. You know what I mean? Like, that's my private life. But you don't want to introduce. I agree with Dom. You don't want to introduce people into these situations because it's fucked up. It's fucked up what people do.
Yeah, I mean, and it's not not saying that it's Bwipo's fault, but it's just like there's ways you can minimize the damage that ends up occurring, and also like just. Like with all the unfollowing and refollowing type stuff, like people look into that so much, it's just unnecessary for the situation. Like I feel like this is just It's
Just
distracting
mute
for the
Sam
team.
Matthews. That's what everyone else does.
Yeah, exactly. just mute half the people. Okay, here's the last thing I want to say. Whenever I see a situation like this, I feel like the best way to like try to figure out what's going on is you look at like the people around them, their reaction. I mentioned this before we were on the show, but when the Rekkles situation happened, when Rekkles was like, I mean, he wasn't crying, but he was just like sitting on stage for like 20 minutes. The reason, like, I thought it was strange, and when I looked at his teammates' reaction, I think that gave me a good idea of like what to think about it, because if you're on a team with a player and he's having like a really emotional moment, almost always you'll see people like go and try to like pick them up or like try to like say something to like cheer them up or like check on them to see if they're okay. But if like the whole teammate, like if all the teammates are just rolling their eyes and ignoring the situation, I feel like that kind of tells you that they have like had enough of it. Like they don't really believe that it's truly genuine. And you know, like when you see teammates from Bwipo typing laughing my ass off publicly, responding to a tweet where they're talking about the situation, it just seems really off to me. Like it doesn't seem like this could actually have occurred where she had saved the whole team and like everyone else was like on board with it. I just don't believe it to be true.
Yeah, I think it's just a tough position to be put in. I think it does spur the question, Jankos, where do you get your inspiration when things are tough and you are 0-3 in a group?
Well, I guess I'm not keeping my relationship a secret because I just don't have one for like a lot of years now. So,
you're married to the jungle, man. It's okay.
Yeah, I'm basically married to League of Legends.
That's smart.
I don't need
look,
that.
Jankos, there is plenty of time to have relationships after your pro career is done. You got your whole life in front of you. Make your fucking money now. Kick ass now. Have sex later.
I mean, I'm not complaining, I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that, like, I think relationships can help you if you are a pro player, and I do believe you can have a healthy relationship even if you are a pro player, even though all your time is basically spent playing the game, right? So you don't really have much time for others. And if you have a relationship, normally you do want to spend time with your significant other. I don't think League of Legends pro player life allows you to do that, right? You either have to move to Berlin. I don't know where your girlfriend is from, right? But you either have to move to Berlin and you basically live there alone. And unless she moves there as well, you will just not see each other very long. And, sometimes long distance is not the best idea. That depends on people. But I don't really need that, And I think my inspiration just comes from the fact that I want to win. And I always wanted to win. And every year I wanted to be higher and higher when it comes to choosing my teams and whom do I play with and how do I perform. And I think this year was a big failure. And I'm also aware of the fact that my years to come are very limited, right? I'm in fact 26 this year, and I'll be 27
so old,
next
man.
year. So,
Crazy.
I mean, okay, compared to you guys, of course, I'm still young. And as a human being, I'm also young. I'm not saying 26 is old, but for a pro player, 26 is higher than average,
for sure.
Most of like the players, even looking at MAD Lions, are like what, 2000 maybe 2001. I'm 95, bro.
I retired at 25, so like I feel like that's normally like the retirement age is from like 25 to like 27.
No, I mean I do think though that you were just okay. So I do think that like people stop being good when they stop trying and stop actually using the time to grind, using the time to learn the game. When you actually want your life back, when you want to do things that are not League of Legends, this is where people tend to lose on out of the performance. But all I do is just stream League of Legends, play League of Legends, and
see, Jankos, what you don't understand is, from your perspective, you're like, oh, well, you were just bad, that's why you retired. But what you don't understand is that I played within NA, so I could have played for, I could still be playing now if I wanted. It's pretty easy to play from North America. You can extend your career,
I was
bro.
just joking, no hard feelings here, right? I mean, I do think that, like, sometimes priorities in life change, and sometimes you also can get complacent with what you achieved, right? Like, sometimes you are, okay, maybe it's enough. Maybe I won 2 years in Europe, and maybe that's enough for me. Maybe I don't have to try hard anymore. Maybe I just want a paycheck from, I don't know, EDG or something.
C9 or something. Oh.
Sorry, or C9, whatever, right? So I think it's just depends person to person, and I don't think age necessarily changes things. And I don't know how we ended up here, but the whole question was, where do I get my motivation from?
Yeah.
I just made a speech about my whole fucking life. The point is, I don't need extra motivation. I mean, I do think that talking to your family, friends, whoever you have in your life, can be very helpful. but I don't think you need that. And sometimes it can also be harmful. So you have to be very, very careful, and you really need a healthy mindset if you want to approach a relationship when being a pro player.
Jankos, I asked what your inspiration was, and I think we just now realize your superpower is saying something and then backtracking to justify it, regardless if it needs to be justified or not. Your journey of justifying it is always hilarious. Thank you for that.
It's crazy because you ask Jankos, you're like, so how do you find your motivation? He's like, well, I'm really fucking old, but I'm not done yet. It's like,
I'm very old. I'm very old. I've been single for a long time.
I feel like trying to kind of justify it to myself as well, I'm just like, I made so many sacrifices, that's my motivation. I just want to grind, man.
All right. So although that was a long way around it, that was a recap of the group stages.
And that's what happened with Fnatic.
A reminder that the jungle is presented by DJ Esports. The first 10 players to reach 60,000 DJT in their DJE wallet will win 50 XRP, so act fast. Use the promo code DJ5050, deposit 50, and get 50 USDT back. Limited to the first 20 people. Sign up now so you don't miss out. All right, y'all, it's time for the part of our show that we like to call God or Dog, where we highlight the best and, the dog of whatever stage we're talking about. We're going to talk about the group stage, I guess, week 2. Since Jankos is new, he'll go last. Dom, you go first here. Who was your god of the group stages?
Okay, so my god of the group stages is just going to be ShowMaker. I mean, I think he was just the best player.
No, he stole it.
I mean, this guy is just too cracked, right? Like, he's too insane. I mean, I had him top 2 coming into the tournament. Now I think he's like the best player left by far, especially with the level that Doinb showed up at. I mean, he didn't even come to Worlds this year. So, ShowMaker is just an absolute fucking monster. I mean, I think he's really like the engine of DAMWON, in my opinion. He's like the heart of the team. Whenever, a game gets rough, it just feels like he's going to be the one that will, make the team win or like push them over the line at all points. So he's going to be my god. My dog is not going to be someone who I think is like the worst performer of group stage, but I'm going to give it to Tarzan from LNG. I think Tarzan is so much better than what we saw. I mean, most Koreans consider him like the second best jungler in the world, if not the best jungler in the world. I've seen that take before. I know in the LPL, he was considered the best jungler in LPL. He was all pro first team. And I thought he played really poorly, especially in the tiebreaker versus MAD Lions. I mean, when a Qiyana is going top and perma-inting, like how many times did we see Elyoya walk top and int, and he was never punished for it in any way? Somehow Elyoya was able to int on cooldown, and he was still ahead in CS the entire time with Qiyana of all champions, and was able to pretty much outperform even while having one of his worst games of the tournament. So to me, I think Tarzan is my dog. I expected a lot more of him, and I was pretty disappointed with how he played.
This is deep cut. Monty, you're next. Who you got for God and Dog? God or Dog?
I think I mentioned this earlier, but I think Khan has actually been very impressive. And for the narratives coming into the World Championship, where obviously myself included, saying Nagari is not being on DAMWON anymore is, Khan's a downgrade. He's been playing out of his mind, actually. And, he has had the stigma for years about choking in important international events. Right now, statistically, he's leading his team in terms of overall damage percentage. And part of this is because obviously he's played 2 games of Graves, 2 of Jax, and Jace and Lucian. So they're putting him on the carries, but they're investing the resources in him. And sure, helps to have ShowMaker doing well, also. But the fact is that he is living up to a very, very high expectation, which is Nogari's performance last year at Worlds, and in fact managed to get out of the group and look better than him in the group stage overall. So I think the comparison is really doing very well for Khan right now, and he has been a very, I think, exciting player to watch at this World Championship, and I hope it continues throughout the rest of the playoff stages.
All right. Who do you got for Dog then?
I think you have to. I'm not sure if this is actually his fault, but I think you have to point at Birdall and the weird top roster swaps that were going on within Gen.G. Birdall, I felt, was really underwhelming. I don't like. First off, I don't think anybody was hyped about Rascal. He was definitely like the worst LCK top laner coming into this event.
No, dude, Morgan? You think he was better than
Morgan?
Morgan?
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair. Morgan is definitely worse. But I think that why you would put Birdall in and then have him deliver these underwhelming performances, maybe they thought, well, this is a top carry meta and Birdall has some kind of advantage, or we need to mix things up to see who is performing better because it is so crucial that the top laner does well. But I think they put themselves in a really awkward situation by starting Birdall in the second round robin and then perform better once they switched over to Rascal. So I think it may be unfair because he probably didn't ask to be put in that situation, but both of the top laners for Gen.G, I think, have not been super, super compelling. And I think you can see very easily how this team could, in theory, be beaten by Cloud9 in the quarterfinals as a result, because it just doesn't feel like the meta is in Gen.G's favor.
All right. Jankos, your turn.
Oh my god, this is a hard one. Okay, so I will do so I wouldn't say God, but close to it. I like Owner, kind of, from SKT. I think he has, first of all, pretty good champion pool. I like the fact that SKT is willing to give up Lee Sin and play someone like Poppy into it. I don't think we saw Poppy, or at least I didn't see Poppy at all before the tournament started. And now I do see some Poppy into Lee Sin, into other champions, and I do like the champion. I feel like it can, bring a lot of skirmish power. I think it's pretty original. And also, if you can actually give up a priority champion and play something into it that works, you get a huge, huge advantage in draft. And not only that, if you show it, which he did in the group stage twice, you can make it so that enemy team is more scared of opening or picking willingly the Lee Sin. And Honor is really, really good on Lee Sin himself, right? I saw it in the SKT games before that. Besides that, he's a rookie. He also, I don't think he was never at Worlds before. He just started playing, I think, for SKT this split, right? Or did he play from Spring Split? I think he started playing for Summer Split.
I think it was this split. I mean, I remember Cuz was playing a lot before.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just so much better than... I don't really remember the name of the second SKT jungler right now.
So
Carzzy, yeah, I think he's so much better than Kaz, and I do think that Faker plays him way better, and I feel like he's willing to take way more risks when you watch him. He has more clever jungle pathing, and he's also really, really good mechanically, which makes sense, since he's a rookie and he's a new player, bringing that mechanical prowess. So I'm happy with him. I could find better performance, namely even ShowMaker. I think Khan has been performing very well, as Monte mentioned. I just think that DAMWON playstyle fits the, top carry kind of thing. And when you play against teams like Rogue, that plays hard to bot side, I just feel like it has to go right, for a team like DAMWON. For my dog, wait, can I just go?
Yeah.
For my dog, so this is not personal, and I really like Odwamne.
Oh, okay, sure. so he wouldn't be your dog then.
I mean, it's just the fact that, so I don't think it's like his fault only. I just feel like overall Rogue had like a pretty difficult top side. Well, they never really played to top side, and I feel like Odwamne can get away with it quite often in their games in Europe, just because people overall, I feel like the Western top laners and the Western players playing top side, maybe with the exception of MAD Lions, is just worse. I feel like, teams like DAMWON, even FPX throughout playoffs, RNG especially, are really, really good at playing to top side, at, playing around Herald, playing around snowballing top lane. And Rogue was never that kind of a team, and they were heavily exposed for it, I feel like, especially for, picking Rumble twice, and I think they got away with like one of the Rumble games, but I just don't like the champion at all, And I think that Odwamne got hard stomped as well in the Graves Jax matchup by Khan, and I mean, you could say he kind of solo lost that game. Like, the game was absolutely unplayable, and as much as I don't think Fiddlesticks can help you there, it just didn't look very well. I feel like he was, one of the reasons why Rogue didn't perform so well, and I think that, again, it's not only his fault. He was left alone often, and enemy teams were, better at playing to that side. But I just feel like he wasn't there, with exception of maybe one Jace game against FPX. I think he had like a decent game, but except for that, I always felt like he's just quite underwhelming, and he just doesn't bring much to the table.
Were you calling him a dog or were you defending him? I couldn't tell. Like,
so this is where personal relationship gets in the way of being an
He's such
analyst.
a nice guy. He's such a nice guy. I feel bad for him.
My, I guess, god of the groups, I would say, goes to Jensen for group, I guess, day 2, his week 2 performance. It felt good to see Jensen perform to the level where he's MVP caliber, years past, of like dragging a team to the finish line, stealing Baron. He did everything that he could, and I hope, and I'm sure he will, feel proud of the way that he played. And it's like, damn, that's the OG, one of the OG import mids still going at it. Bjergsem might come back next year, who knows? But like, Jensen's still going at it and still has it at a world-class level. That was really fun to watch. And I think for Dog, it probably has to be one of the 2 young AD carries. It has to be Tactical or FBI. And I think it's probably FBI. It's one of his first Worlds appearances. Yeah. I think it's one of his first.
It's tactical.
I thought he didn't do that bad.
All right, continue.
So with Tactical, I feel like it's less on him because CoreJJ was never in the lane. He was never in the lane. And so therefore, like,
why would you be? He's tactical.
Oh my god!
I don't think Tactical is that bad. I really don't think he's that bad. I feel like he underperformed, but I don't think that Tactical is like some awful player that you can't play around. Like, I feel like this guy can carry games.
But I think CoreJJ has invested into all right, level 3, see you later. And Tactical spending most of his time in between both towers or at tier 2 because he's gotten really good at just watching the mini-map and seeing like minions die in front of him. I think that's why I go with FBI, just because I had higher hopes for him to step up and be more dominant in games and in fights, and there were other things breaking around, so him over at 100 Thieves, but I feel like in times where he had opportunities to carry, he never was able to. So
I think the thing that I remember Tactical the most was when he was the game against Gen.G, where he was like basing between tier 3 and tier 2, and the Zoe bubble just like
yeah.
So I think this is what I remember, at least from him.
I'm shocked actually nobody picked BDD, who has been vastly exceeded. He's vastly exceeded expectations at this event too. Like for me, BDD
I hate watching BDD play. BDD,
I always have.
I mean, his fucking itemization has to be the worst in the tournament. Like, not only does he buy anti-heal every time second, but it's like his mythic is fine. Sometimes his boots are a little bit too defensive for the situation. A little bit bitch-made boots. But the fucking second item that he chooses is always the most mind-boggling. So on Syndra, think about this. On Syndra, he's second items Horizon Focus. On Zoe, he's second items Cosmic Drive. On Zoe, second item. Like, not a Death Cap. You could go the Horizon Focus even, and I would like it more. Not a Void Staff. A fucking Cosmic Drive on Zoe. Like, isn't the whole point of Zoe to just land that one bubble and actually have that bubble turn into like a fuck ton of damage or a one shot or something like that? Is it really to just spam abilities and build this item that gives you what? How much AP does Cosmic Drive give you? 75? What is it? 60?
I think it's like,
is it 80?
90
80?
maybe? 80, yeah.
Okay, 80 not bad. 80 not bad. I guess it's not bad, but it's, I mean, compared to like the damage that you'd actually get with like a Death Cap or a Void Staff or something, it's just way less. So yeah, I hate the itemization.
But his Syndra QEs were really nice.
And yet,
I think his Syndra, gameplay at least, was pretty clutch, I think, in a lot of these games.
Yeah, and yet I think it says a lot about Gen.G, and yet BDD, out of all mid laners at this event, has the highest percentage damage on his team at almost 30%. So
well, I mean, but it's so easy to have high damage dealt when your fucking top laner is playing Aurelia 0640 CS at 35 minutes.
You are correct.
Fuck? If your top laner isn't playing the game, you're gonna have pretty high damage percentage. I don't know if that necessarily that's why I don't like those stats, because if you contextualize them, they become completely different different.
I think
like,
no.
what is
Yeah,
actually
no,
going
I just
on.
think it's important to discuss them. All stats are useful. It's just a matter, and that's the point you make, of course, right? But I think in terms of some of the other players that we've talked about, like having Khan at such a high damage percent is actually very interesting because you wouldn't say that most of his team is like failing him at this point in the tournament. So
That's a good damage percent. That's a good damage percent for sure.
All right, well, we'll be able to dive into BDD and the rest of Gen.G here in our next segment, but this was God or Dog. All right, next up, we're calling this the most fraudulent team of quarterfinals, where, as you guessed, we will point out the most fraudulent team of quarterfinals. Our experts here will make their case for the most fraudulent teams out of the 8 that are still remaining for the Summoners Cup. And we'll start with you, Dom. Who is the most fraudulent team in the quarterfinals?
Well, for a first seed, I'm going to say Gen.G. I think that they are definitely the worst first seed that we got. Man, I just like this team. I hate Gen.G. I'm just gonna say it. I've hated them for a while. I mean, they're just the team that you just have no hope going into. I mean, the only reason that you think Cloud9 can get through is not because you have some random hope in Cloud9. It's just because you believe deep in your soul that Gen.G could be that fucking bad on the day. They could really show up and choke so damn hard that even Cloud9 could beat them. So, man, this team, I can't believe they keep on getting out as first seed. We saw last year, they had massive leads in quarterfinals. Like in game 1, remember the game 1 that you played in Jankos? Where they had a massive lead and then they just gave you guys the game like nothing. They just...
I enjoyed it. I didn't mind playing them.
Yeah, exactly. No one minds playing them. It's great for the enemies, but for a first seed, I feel like it's super fraudulent. Yeah, I am just the resident Gen.G hater, and I really hope Cloud9 eliminates them.
Yeah, the inverse of hopium is, if you're a Gen.G fan, mopium as another quarterfinal exit might be looming. Or, maybe they'll make it to semifinals and they get rolled.
I hope Cloud9 wins. I want Cloud9 to win that game.
How depressing was that tiebreaker for MAD Lions, where MAD Lions is down like 6K, and then they're playing Victor in 2021 World Championship in October. They're playing Victor right now. Like, no one else is touching this champion. They fucking play it, and somehow they're able to scale for like 40 minutes until they almost won the game. It's so crazy to be the Gen.G just like, they're just so inactive. They're like what people think when people are like, oh, Korean teams are just boring and slow. Like, they're just talking about Gen.G normally. Like, the other teams don't even really play like that anymore. That is just Gen.G all over it. So there's my Gen.G flame. I hope that team loses immediately. I can't stand watching 2 best-of-5s with this team.
All right, Gen.G, big fraud. Monty, who you got as the biggest, most fraudulent team of quarterfinals?
All right, I think the Gen.G one it would have been my take too. But to make things interesting, I agree with Dom. We said on this show, I hope that they don't make playoffs because I don't want to watch a best of 5. That's still true. I hope Cloud9 wins. I will have a different take, which is RNG is the most fraudulent team. I think that if it's already embarrassing that Cryan has an MSI title, he cannot be allowed to win a world championship title. This guy is a trash can. I think that RNG overall should be punished. Like, what is it? You can't just keep allowing him to play TF and Galio every fucking game. Like, I'd like to see more of a targeted ban phase against Cryan. I think Xiaohu is massively overrated. I think people get hyped because he can play interesting matchups from his time in the mid lane, like the Syndra into the Kennen. But I think also this guy is very limited in terms of what he can do. And so you're basically relying on a Gala carry. And I think that RNG has a very good chance of getting exposed, especially in an LPL versus LPL matchup with EDG. I think I take EDG all day in this best of 5.
Well, if you ban out the Twisted Fate and you ban out the Rise here, or Galio, Rise, all the globals here, probably going to get yourself an Orianna pick, something safe. Cryan played 9 games of Orianna in spring playoffs and 7 in playoffs, 9 in the regular season. If we go to summer, Orianna 7 games. So Orianna is probably what you're going to face here. So just a little bit of draft prep for EDG as they prepare.
I think you also look at the way that we saw RNG approaching the second round robin, and they weren't really impressive overall. I mean, they lost a game to Fnatic, they lost a game to Hanwha Life. I think that they were also in a group where I think the matchup between Xiaohu and Flandre should be going Flandre. Like, the fact that they couldn't bowl over Hanwha Life in the second round robin with Morgan in top lane is
They
really
made Morgan
concerning.
look good.
It's very concerning when you look at how their victories were over teams like that had Adam, who's a rookie, right, and Morgan, and Hanabi now arguably was the best performing player on PSG Talent, but I just don't see that this group really lined up with the strengths of the meta very well overall. And so the fact that they struggled here, I think, bodes very poorly for their quarterfinal match.
All right. Well, we've got an RNG vote. We've got the probably fan favorite Gen.G vote. Jankos, your turn. Most fraudulent team in the quarterfinals.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think I just have to be like a very vanilla kind of person, and I will also go with Gen.G. I feel like... Well, I did get to play them last year, right? And I think when they are the first seed team and you see all the second seed teams being very happy, actually just straight up being lucky that you get to play Gen.G, it just speaks for itself, right? Like no team, no
the Cloud9 reaction
team you would say that you want to face. You have SKT, you have RNG, and then you have, I guess Monte made a case against Crying, right? But you have SKT, you have RNG, and then you have DAMWON, and then you have Gen.G. So like everyone would always choose Gen.G over them just because their games are, like mentioned already, the games are super slow. I just feel like they don't find enough leads in the early game, and even if they do, they fail to snowball the leads. I feel like their games are mostly about, kind of farming and scaling for late game. I feel like they are just waiting 5 minutes for every Drake to come up, and then if the Drake is up, they will try to take a fight there. And I think this is how they also... Wait, did they throw a game against Fnatic this way, maybe? I just remember that one game I was watching from them, they were just like... Yeah, they were like hard trolling by not doing anything, and by just like waiting for all the Drakes to spawn, and at some point enemy team had like the draft to outscale them,
It was
as much as they do like scaling themselves. So
I think it was
the MAD Lions
game.
Oh, it was, yeah. But I'm definitely not a fan of the team. I think that Cloud9 is probably when they got the draft, they were just like straight up jumping around, Like that's what I would do. I mean, when I got Gen.G last year, it just means that you have extra week at Worlds, extra week to prepare for the actual good teams, So,
holy shit!
Wow, that's a take. I love it.
I think Cloud9 will do well, and I think they can win. I think Perkz can take that one for sure.
All right, well, there you have it. Fraudulent teams, stay clear as you make your predictions in the future here of those two teams as told by our experts. All right, let's close things out with predictions. We've got 4 matches. It's time to decide who will move on to the semifinals. We'll start at the top of the bracket. It's an all LPL affair. This is RNG against EDG. Jankos, I'm putting you on the spot first. Who do you got?
RNG, EDG. I do think EDG is gonna take that one. Even though, I mean, as much as Monte didn't like Crying, I actually think that globals are the way of playing the game right now, especially at TF. So I think it will come out to draft a lot. I think that Xiaohu is performing quite well overall too. So I feel like for me, I'll be looking forward to watch that game from the draft perspective. If Crying is banned out and if he's kind of exposed and put on, even Orianna, right? If he cannot play anything else, then like, I think TF, Galio, maybe Ryze, if he doesn't have these roaming champions, these champions that can push out the lane and, help topside. I feel like most of the RNG games are actually played through Jeje and through Xiaohu. I think if Xiaohu cannot get the lead, I think EDG should take the game.
Through Wei, yeah.
All right, there you go. Jankos is in with EDG. How about you, Dom?
Okay, so look, I think EDG looks a lot better than RNG. I think RNG looked really terrible. But RNG is my crystal ball pick, so I just need to fucking go with them, right? Like if they're gonna win the tournament, they have to fucking win this game.
Get out.
Like what do you expect me to do here? Like I have no choice. I have to say that RNG is gonna win. No, I mean I think that these types of games I can see a world where RNG wins just because EDG's like a team that has that choke in them. Like they could just collapse. I mean we've seen it multiple times. And I think that RNG has like, they have a little bit more of that championship spirit in them. So You know what? I'll take RNG. I think that RNG will win that one. Not really, but for the sake of
for the crystal ball.
Yeah, for the crystal ball and for the sake of not having a boring ass show, I'm picking them to win. Here we go.
I like. I was wondering when you're like, yeah, championship spirit. What's the antithesis of it? What's the opposite of it? A little bit of choke in them.
It's called Gen.G.
Rogue.
That's the antithesis of it.
It could be the Gen.G and that's what I
right. Monty, let's make it official.
EDG.
All right, there it is. We heard his case earlier. EDG will be it. So we've got a 2-1 EDG picks here. Next up, we've got the one that all the Western world will be watching. I guess one of the ones that the Western world will be watching. Generation Gaming against Cloud9. And Dom, you can go first because I think we know your feelings here on Gen.G.
Please, Cloud9 win. I don't even have a prediction. It's not even a prediction. It's just me groveling at this point. I am begging Cloud9 to win. Like, please don't. I mean, at least if you're gonna lose 3-0, so I don't have to watch 5 games of Gen.G. Like, I'll do fucking anything.
I don't think
please.
this is possible. I don't think the series will be a 3-0 unless Cloud9 wins.
Oh man, please C9 win. That's all I'm saying. Please C9 win.
All right, Monty.
Cloud9. I also, like Dom, don't want to see Gen.G. But I think Cloud9 actually does have a pretty legitimate shot at taking this. I think that when they're on, they look pretty good, and the individual, like player for player on an individual level, they've been performing very well. So as long as, and also I think that they at least have the fire in the late game that even if they are behind, like Gen.G's inaction can be punished by Cloud9's ability to actually do and force things, which I think that they showed in the second round robin. So I think Cloud9 takes this.
And Jankos, I think I know where you're going, so I want to ask you a slightly different question. What's the most important matchup in that game?
Ooh, well, I would just go with Perkz BDD, right? I think Perkz made that tweet that BDD is losing to like a shopkeeper every game pretty much, which I guess Dom made a case against it as well. I feel like when Perkz is unleashed with Blabber, or maybe, okay, can I change it a little bit? Can I say mid jungle, just because of how important it is to have like mid jungle winning? And I feel like Blabber and Perkz have been playing very, very well together for the past second part of the group stage. And I feel like if they bring that prowess again to the top side, to the bot side, and get their, LeBlanc Lee Sin picks or anything aggressive, really, for Perkz could be TF, could be LeBlanc, could be Ryze, could be anything really. This guy plays every champion. I feel like this should come down to the mid jungle, and I feel like Cloud9 is just favored in the matchup.
Right. I think you know exactly how Gen.G is going to play. The most important matchup is Blabber versus himself, and how he's going to
Blabber versus the crab. Like, that is the matchup.
Blabber versus crab, baby.
That's the matchup to watch. Yeah. If Cloud9 doesn't lose the game at 3 minutes, they are not going to lose the game.
Yeah. There it is. All right, 3-0 on our analyst test, just like we hope the game is going to go in real life. All right, now for the bottom side of the bracket, it's time for the God against the Church. It's T1 against Hanwha Life. We'll go there for you first, Monty. Who you got here, T1 against Hanwha?
Oh, come on. It has to be T1. We've already seen this matchup. Like, I know how it goes. I think Hanwha has been super disappointing overall. And I think, frankly, a lot of T1's players, especially Kana, have stepped up, and Owner have stepped up a lot since we last saw them in the LCK. So I think Hanwha is such a fucking flawed team that it's hard to imagine that they could beat T1 in their present form. That, to me, if T1 loses, this is the biggest upset possible in this quarterfinal. Like, I could make arguments for the other teams potentially winning any of the other 3 quarterfinal matchups. People will be like, "Oh, MAD Lions."
Yeah, I was saying MAD Lions.
No, but they took DAMWON to 5 games at MSI, and MAD Lions did look extremely good in the LEC playoffs. So I think that Hanwha over T1 is a bigger upset than MAD Lions over DAMWON.
Damn. Crazy.
Nah, I think. Yeah, I guess, yes. Okay, that makes sense. I guess if Cloud9 wins, so too, Gen.G wins, yeah. Okay. Who you got, Dom?
Come on. I mean, if we all don't have T1, we're kicking people off the show. Like, it's just like,
I don't even think there's like a feasible argument that you could make for Hanwha.
I mean,
I
what
guess
would you
Chovy
say?
is pretty good at taking CS.
Yeah,
I'm sure he's gonna help them.
So, I mean, I guess what would the argument be? The argument would be, oh, well, Hanwha Life took 2 games off them in that best of 5 at the end of Gauntlet or whatever. So they're only 1 game away. They could just win that last one and end up.
You know what's actually here? I'll give you something interesting about this matchup to watch, which is that obviously Faker has the reputation that is correctly given as being the best League of Legends player of all time, right? But in terms of the play style, they've been really, Chovy and Faker have been at opposite ends of the spectrum, and Faker's actually been playing very low economy so far at this World Championship. He takes less gold than any other mid laner, while Chovy takes the most of his team's percentage. And so Faker really has been playing more of a supportive role and a map control role this time, where Chovy is just like married to CS in the mid lane. So it's pretty interesting. I think that matchup is interesting to take a look at and see which is more effective in the current meta.
I mean, I just think it's funny. I think it's funny. Well, yeah, it's definitely. But I mean, I think it's funny that somehow like Chovy gets less CS as the game goes on. So like he'll have like 300 CS at 7 minutes, and then at like 31 minutes he'll have like 290, and you're like, what the fuck is happening in this game?
He still gets he still gets the highest percentage of his team CS after 15 minutes in spite of that. So he's still getting more after 15 minutes by percentage than any other mid laner.
Yeah, Morgan, stop taking the CS. I don't need it, but I need the percentage share.
Well, Morgan doesn't need it either. Honestly, like maybe it's better if Morgan is weaker so he doesn't feel inspired to do anything in the fights.
And I feel like this is the problem that they might have as well, right? I feel like SKT is actually pretty good playing to topside right now, and I think that's just the meta, you know? The meta of Worlds will be snowballing topside, and I feel like Kana and Honor can do it just so much better than Morgan and Willer. I'm not the biggest Willer fan as well, and I also felt like Chovy, even as much as he did have a lot of CS in his games, I remember like one of his TF games where he was playing TF, and I think Deft was playing Aphelios that game. And I just remember that his only job was to gold card the front line. But instead of doing that he was like permanently trying to flank with TF and trying to like gold card the back line. But there was like no way of his team following that. So as much as like I think he's good at CSing, I really couldn't believe that like he can just stand in front of Aphelios, gold card the front line so Aphelios can actually hit in these fights, and I believe they lost that game as well. So yeah, I think that just no way, there's just no way SKT is gonna lose this one.
That was the tiebreaker, right, versus RNG. I feel like his mentality was he wanted to like prevent the Kennen from flanking, so he was trying to like mark the Kennen on the flank. But I definitely agree with you that he could just do the same thing with rapid fire.
Press ult, you know, like you press ult and you don't have to TP. You just press ult, you see the Kennen team. Like your teammates are aware of it, and that's all you have to do, you know. You don't have to like make any crazy plays, especially if you're playing TF with like 500 damage combo. Like you just your job in that game, like you just have to realize what your job is, you know. With TF, I think you can have many jobs, but you just need to know which job is the good one in the game.
No, I agree with that. I think that definitely, I mean, like if you gold card the front line, like Jankos is saying, you gold card Zin, that's instantly his ult. Like he has to ult or he's gonna get one shot. And then if you gold card Rel is probably one shot too. So I feel like it makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. And T1 is definitely going to win this series as well. I
had to make the argument just because I really despise TF. And I think he could have used him better in that game.
You know, Faker, regardless of what we think about how Faker has been used by his coaches, he is always a player that has played for the team, like back in playing Lulu, and now he's played most of his games at Worlds, half of them so far on Twisted Fate. He's played 3, and then he's played a game of Zoe, a game of Azir, and a game of Orianna. So he's definitely playing the meta right now overall, and you compare that with Kana, who's played 2 games of Graves, Jason, and Kennen each, and you really see how they're allocating their resources.
Yeah. All right. Well, another 3-0 prediction here. Time for the last one.
And DAMWON the banger.
This one's the banger. Okay. Jankos, you can go first then. DAMWON, Kia, MAD Lions. Who you got?
I mean, the obvious choice would be DAMWON, so this is why, of course, I'm gonna choose MAD Lions. I feel like they had like a pretty decent MSI run, and of course, DAMWON's playing much better now. But like we don't know that, you know. I want to see DAMWON in a BO5 as well. I want to see them facing other teams than Cloud9 and Rogue. Technically, Rogue compared to MAD was, I feel like, much worse in playoffs, even though they had some early game leads. I I feel like MAD Lions is actually the team to watch, and I feel like MAD Lions is the team to also answer the aggression from Khan on the top side. I think Armut is a player who, in a counter matchup, is very comfortable, and he does like to, go for these skirmishes one-on-one. I think he had a game against LNG, the game where he was playing Gnar, when he had Kiana in his team. I think in that game he was like permanently jumping in, and Tarzan did like punish him once or twice by burning his flash. But I feel like he really likes to punish whenever he gets the lead, and he really likes to punish these matchups. And I feel like a lot should come down to the top side in that series, because I feel like both bot lanes overall from both teams are quite low eco. So I'm gonna look at the draft. I'm gonna see which team gets the TF, and then it will be easier to make my prediction. But for now, at least, I really believe in MAD Lions. I think they can pull through. I think that they picked up their game quite a lot from the first stage of group stage, and I feel like just judging by how they play team fights, how they can play from behind, and how they are also good at snowballing these games, I would just say MAD. I really want to believe it. I like, my heart is telling me like it's a bit end to pick MAD, but I really want to believe MAD will take it. So I would just go with MAD.
And there it is. See, this is Jankos. This Jankos' superpower is kicking in. He had to justify his pick, and he doesn't know why.
Yep. I mean, look, this is all I'm gonna say. I did pick 'em with Jankos. We had the same exact pick 'em besides for one team, and it went fucking terribly. So now I'm just going to pick the opposite of what Jankos picks, like, from now on. So DAMWON, I mean, I do think that they're just like the best team at World. So they're the obvious pick. I think DAMWON is just too good. I think MAD Lions could have beat any of the other teams. I think it would have been pretty close versus any of the other teams, but I just feel like DAMWON is really, really having their shit together right now. And I'm really worried about them just downloading MAD Lions and just banning out Armut's champions, because I feel like Armut has actually had one of the... I would say Armut's probably been the best performer on MAD Lions as a whole. I mean, Humanoid had his games, but if you average out like level of performance across all the games played, Armut had one bad game on Jax. Besides for that, I think he's been having a really good tournament, and he seems relatively clutch. So I just feel like if they target Armut, I don't know if the rest of the team will be able to pick up the slack, and I just think the DAMWON is just too good in other places to really deal with it.
Yeah, I think also the thing about MAD Lions is they're kind of playing fringe meta picks that are uncontested that I think can easily be banned out. Like, I'd take a flyer on the Gnar just because I don't think Gnar is particularly great right now, but I do think that Armut knows how to position himself on Gnar in the late game, and like, why take that risk, right? Why take the risk of a comeback? I think Humanoid's been kind of underwhelming, and unfortunately, I just don't see that MAD Lions really has the right pieces to kind of strike at the weaknesses of DAMWON. And I think DAMWON has shown few weaknesses, but coming into this event, you would have said, okay, let's take a look at the bot lane. Well, yeah. I don't think like Carzzy and Kaiser are really playing up to a level where they're going to be able to severely punish Ghost and Beryl. And I think they're looking at significantly less experience in two of the most important roles. Like, you're looking at rookies, basically, with Armut and Elyoya. And I think that they have not been previously rattled, as we saw at MSI, by being on the big stage. But I think you compare them to players of the caliber and experience of Khan and Canyon, and that's really tough. That's really fucking hard for those guys. And I think if we were looking at these same lineups a year from now, we might have a different conversation. But I think they just match up very badly against DAMWON.
So I'm the only one like super high on Copium here.
Yeah, no, you're the only one.
I agree with Dom. I think you put MAD Lions in any other quarterfinal match, and they have a shot. And I still think that it's more likely that they beat DAMWON than Hanwha beats T1 in the current form. But I think this is rough. This is super rough.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that we haven't mentioned yet is just like the champion pool, or like the champion picks that are happening bot lane. I feel like when I watched MAD Lions throughout like the entire year, Kaiser was just their main engaged player. Like, whether it's Nautilus, Leona, Rakan, like, he is just super good on those picks, and I feel like that's a huge strength for MAD Lions. And at this tournament, you have a lot of Yuumi. You're seeing some like Lulu as a counter pick to it. You see Nami, Lucian, and even though Kaiser isn't like bad on those picks, it just doesn't feel like he's as good as he is, or like the team is as good when he's playing those as compared to like the engaged champion. So I feel like the meta might not be helping them out too much.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that your focus, though, Jankos, was on on like your win conditions are your young players, right? But more specifically, Armit on the top. That seems just feels hard. It feels hard.
I mean, I do think that it is hard, right? But I think it's like kind of possible, and I also think that Kaiser and Carzzy were playing most weak sides or through the bot side, and Kaiser does roam a lot, but I also feel like they're quite good players, you know? And as much as I don't think they will punish the bot lane, I just feel like if Kaiser joins, you know, the top side and they play together, I think like they actually can pull through. I think it's possible. I think with a good draft it's possible. Maybe
here's the thing though, dude. Like I just really don't like it because Carzzy also, as good as like as Ezreal is, he's not. Again, there are like a lot of weird picks coming in. There's like the Ezreal for Carzzy, there's the Gnar for Armit, there's the Victor for Humanoid, and these are kind of like sitting on the fringe of what the good teams are playing in terms of the meta. And Carzzy's affiliates is bad. Is bad. And that's a hugely important meta pick right now. And I think that if we're just talking about this one matchup and you want to like attack Ghost and Barrel in the laning phase, and you're talking about your strongest champions being like Ezreal, I think it makes it really hard.
Yeah.
Makes it really hard.
That's fair though. But Ezreal, I mean, if you want to lose bot lane though, then Ezreal is one of the champions to do it with.
But you need to win bot lane. That's my point, Jankos. In this matchup, you have to win it. Because if you're not winning bot, Jankos, if you're not winning bot,
then they roam the whole time. Imagine if you Ezreal and you roam the whole time. That makes more sense.
Jankos, just tell me, if you're not winning bot, where are MAD Lions winning on the map? Where are they winning?
Mid lane, boom, ShowMaker getting taken out by Humanoid.
ShowMaker getting solo killed by Humanoid. No, I mean, I just think top side. I don't think it's gonna be Armut solo killing Khan, but I do think that, you know, with a smart popping or with good out-lane skirmishes, you know, with a good draft, I think. I mean, I would say, you know, on a normal day, MAD Lions is the worst team, you know. Like Khan and Canyon are playing very fucking well. ShowMaker is like kind of smurfing, but I think you just never know. I think it's possible. I just believe it in them. Like I played against DAMWON twice. I one time I won, other time I got smashed, but I won at least one game. During Messiah, 5 games. Sure, they are better now. I think it's still possible.
Man, this is I like this. We have Monty and Jankos next to each other on my screen. This is your brain, and this is your brain on Kobe.
This is your heart. This is your heart. Look, I'll admit, it would be hype as fuck if MAD Lions won this. It would be great.
Oh, it'd be so good for Worlds. I mean, it would also go with the theme of like all these fucking upsets happening because...
I mean, unfortunately, I think that if DAMWON loses, then T1 just wins Worlds, so... right? I mean, if they lose in this match...
Maybe I could see, like, I think that people have just in general taken way too much out of like the best of ones in group stage. Like,
of course,
just because T1 like ended up like, okay, so EDG dropped the game to 100 Thieves. Like T1 and EDG, like they looked pretty similar strength when they played against each other. Like EDG stomped the first game,
Agreed.
T1 stomped the second game. I'm not convinced that T1 is just better than EDG, and if they played a best of 5, T1 is like massive favorites in that. Like I think that EDG could easily still win. So I think that that's the issue that most people have. When you go back and you think about world championships and you think about group stages in general, there's been multiple times where the team that's a literal champion has either came in second in their group or looked terrible in their group. Like, look at FPX. They barely got first in the group over Splyce. Splyce wasn't even a team in Europe, dude. G2 and Fnatic were shitting all over Splyce's face every single time they played them. And then, like, you know, Splyce... Yeah, exactly. And Splyce almost beat FPX. So people thought G2 was going to win that final just because, dude, if Splyce is almost beating FPX, how is G2 not going to definitely beat FPX? Like, they took a game off, like, Splyce won a game, brought him to a tiebreak. Vizichachi Cho'Gath, everyone fucking remembers that shit. The next year, you have 2018, so let's go back a year. You have Fnatic and IG in the same group. Fnatic won the tiebreak, came out first in that group. IG came out second. And then IG just wiped the floor with them, like 3-0'd them in finals.
To be fair, those were the two teams in the finals.
Yeah, those were the two teams in the finals, right? But like, when you look at
like that's not egregious.
Well, no, I mean the point is that people would just expect Fnatic to win because Fnatic like won the tiebreak and they won it like pretty convincingly. Like it wasn't like that close of a series. So my biggest like situation that I see is people will take these best of ones and they'll massively overrate teams because of them. But I don't think that like the teams in best of 5s that got second in these groups are like significantly worse. Like MAD Lions versus Gen.G, bro, I'd fucking pick MAD Lions to win a best of 5 versus Gen.G, even though they just lost to them yesterday. Like, I don't know.
Yep, I agree.
So I just think that once this tournament starts, you kind of have to like remove group stage from your mind a little bit and just focus on like how the teams actually adapt within a best of 5.
All right. Well, those were our predictions. And to close things out, even though Monty took the factoid of mine, which was what was the I guess it was like I forgot how I was going to phrase it, but it was something about how many semifinals Jankos had made. I got a different fact.
To be fair,
you.
Jankos announced that himself. He announced that.
Here's the next one. How many semifinals have I made? Boom. Factoid. Anyone know?
LCS?
LCS, actually. Okay, we'll take that.
Here we go. I had to tie it into Worlds. There were a ton of tiebreakers in this year's group stage. The West won some, which was great. What was the first tiebreaker the West won at Worlds? A Western team had won at Worlds. Ever. That's correct.
Like
at Worlds.
Holy shit, that's crazy. I have no clue.
I mean, it has to be this one, right? It literally just has to. I just feel like it has to be this one.
It cannot be, because I think Europe is actually. I think Europe. There was a meme that Europe always wins tiebreakers.
Yeah.
There was a meme that Europe always wins tiebreakers. So I think it had to be like before this Worlds.
It was season 3. I think.
Season 3, there was no team that got out, I don't think, besides for C9, which is already seeded out.
No. That was where the Dade Award came from. So it was Gambit over MVP or Samsung Ozone, I think.
Wait, are we talking about like the West, or is it just NA?
I said the West.
The West.
The West. Oh, I was thinking NA. Oh, okay.
Because that was a huge upset.
That is awesome. Monty, again, just the brain.
God.
I can't believe you got that one, dude. I can't believe you got that one. I really thought.
Never, I guess.
All right. I really thought that I had you with that one. That one was hard.
That's where the Dade Award came from. I forget the exact picks in that game, but that may have been the game where he just fucking inted on Gragas.
Yeah, I guess. Damn, that was so good. All right. Well, anyway, the next couple of attempts were Cloud9. They lost in 2014 to Najin Whitesword. In 2015, they lost to AHQ. And then in 2016, we had our second tiebreaker win. Jankos?
H2K.
No? That's right. You guys.
Okay. You guys beat the teams he was on.
Yeah, you guys beat EDG, so that you ended up playing Albus Nox Luna instead of Rox Tigers.
He got the freest quarter of all time.
Getting Albus Nox was getting Gen.G, dude. He was just like the best.
What was easier, beating Albus Nox in 2016 or beating Gen.G last year?
I do think beating Albus Nox, just because they actually AFK. I mean, they were just actually bad, and Gen.G still like had early game leads, and my Nidali was not hitting a lot of spears. So actually, my Nidali is pretty clean now. I'm just saying. Just wanna put it.
I've always publicly had. I literally argue with my chat almost daily about the fact that you can actually play Lee Sin. Like,
wait, but you are like arguing with me,
yes,
right? For
yes,
me, I mean.
yes. I'm like,
nice.
Jankos actually doesn't have a bad Lee Sin, and my chat just tells me you're the worst Lee Sin known to man. So
no, but like my chat tells me I'm just bad, so it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Just Twitch chat. Jankos, Lee Sin, Keck W.
Yeah, I'm actually going through it right now. I didn't see.
I was wrong about the picks. I just looked up those picks, and it was Dade playing TF, which is even more offensive because he's probably one of the best, if not the best, TF player of his era. Along with like Messiah. So The fact that he lost on that champion was pretty crazy, especially considering the next year on Samsung Blue, he was incredibly dominant on TF.
Yeah. And then of course the other side of the fact was, this was the first time NA had won a tiebreaker that was important like that in the group stage.
That makes sense. Europeans love ties, so they win them all. A proud Riot tradition.
All right, y'all. That does it for our longest episode of The Jungle. Make sure to check out the video over at Dexerto Esports. Thank you so much for joining us, Jankos. Do you have any closing words for us?
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate you having me.
Yeah,
Had fun.
Sweet. We will be back after the quarterfinals to break down all the action, give you the gods or dogs, our predictions, and recapping everything in between. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch all of you next time. See ya.